Hey, I'm Tommy, and this is That's Runnable. This podcast is built around a simple mantra: run the runnable. Do what you can. Focus on what you can control, and do that no matter what. It's a mantra that believes in optimistically seeking out what's possible. We're not here to sugarcoat the process. I'm not going to tell you that skipping your run is always self-care, or that it's bad to feel down about your training, though hey, sometimes it is. And sometimes you will. That's all part of the journey. What matters is showing up, not just for your running, but for yourself, for the people around you. This show is about mental resilience, self-improvement, growth, and celebrating the process, even when it's messy. Sometimes it'll just be me, sharing thoughts from the trail, from coaching, or from life. Sometimes we'll have guests on, runners, coaches, friends, and people who are doing interesting work in the space. We'll have the occasional expert in to break things down. We'll also shine a light on brands and businesses who are doing cool things in the running world. And my favorite, we'll get into listener questions. Because in the short time that this podcast has existed, we've built an amazing community and supportive corner in the running space. So if you love running, but you're also curious about the deeper stuff, how to stay in it, why it matters, and what it gives us, you're in the right place. This is That's Runnable. Hello. That was my new introduction. Did you like it? That's my trailer. I've just made a trailer and it's actually really hard to do. I want to get the message right, I want to get the whole point of this podcast across in a little trailer. And I thought it'd be interesting to, or at least a little bit different, to do the trailer as the intro today, sort of, or at least before the intro. This is episode 40. Episode 40. That's crazy to me. And I'm really grateful for you being here. We're going to do a Q&A today. And I have listened to the first few, but the last few I haven't. And we're going to try and do 6 or 7 questions. So, strap in. These are the first few are very good questions. And we should just dive in, shouldn't we?
Hi Tommy, Kieran here from Sydney, Australia. Firstly, loving the podcast. It's really informative and keeping me good company on the trails. Currently preparing for the Ultra Trail Australia, 100 kilometres. So as you know, I'm needing to get in some pretty serious long runs. Just wondering if you have any advice on recovery on long run days. I find that I'm pretty wrecked after, but also would like to be able to sort of bounce back and enjoy the rest of my day. Particularly with, this
Wouldn't we
sort
all,
of
man?
being a sustainable part of my life and just living life as per usual. Thanks, mate. Keep up the great work.
Mate, great question. Appreciate the question. I have struggled for many years with the long run and just feeling really fatigued. And my answer to you is going to be twofold, I guess. The first will be that you want to make sure you're executing your long runs in the best way possible. Now, long runs can be executed in different ways. That if you're sort of more experienced and you've been doing a lot of volume for a long time, you can put in hill sprints, you can throw in some segments of faster training, maybe later in your sort of in your peak phase, you can put in more interesting long runs. But for the most part, long runs should be performed at a really easy pace. You're really focused on time on feet with long runs. That should be what you're thinking about. And so that means if you do break into walks occasionally, if you're walking up the uphills, you're taking it real easy. You're just trying to keep your heart rate in a lower zone and get time on feet. So that would be my first piece of advice. Make sure you're executing the long run appropriately and you're not overdoing it. Because if you're running for 3 hours and you're doing it at just a little bit slower than marathon pace, you're going to be shattered. you're going to be absolutely nailed. So I think you should definitely focus on execution as the first point. Secondly, recovery is a difficult one in terms of the information that you're getting. Maybe it's confusing, but the 3 pillars to recovery are movement, sleep, and nutrition. So you want to be moving. You don't want to just sit on the sofa for the rest of the day. You want to be out and about, walking. You want to, the next day, be walking or even going on a recovery run, but you want to make sure you prioritize movement. It might be that you do a bit of cross training the next day for your recovery, but the day of, you do want to just keep moving and make sure you're getting good blood flow to the muscles. You want to make sure you're sleeping. I know people who take naps after long runs. That might be the way to do it for you. But generally, a good routine sleep will help you to recover. And nutrition is really important as well. You want to make sure you're getting some sort of fuel in. I would actually, not some sort of fuel. In an ideal world, you want a good meal up to 90 minutes after your run. So make sure you're fueling right away. Make sure you have a generally variety in your plate, high fibrous and high protein diet. And that's all really you can do. Hydration is also going to be a key to fueling properly. That is really what you should focus on in terms of recovery. The day of, I think most of that will come down to execution of your long run and how you're approaching it. And also later on in your training, there will come a time where you've done enough volume consistently over 4 or 5 weeks that those long runs, if you've done it well, if you've done it sustainably and you've ramped up slowly, those long runs will feel less taxing, because that should be the real goal of a long run. The real goal of a long run is to finish it not feeling much worse than when you started. If you finish a long run feeling good, you've executed it well, in my eyes. So you can make your long runs more intense. It is a reality that a long run is, in my eyes, like a quality session in the week. Although it's easy training, although it's just time on feet, it is more taxing. And so you should consider it as such. A lot of people will program like 2 intense workouts a week plus a long run, and maybe even a medium run as well. I would say if you're doing a lot of long distance training, you don't need to have 2 really intense sessions a week. You can have one, and maybe one that's slightly more intense, maybe a progression run or some sort of some coasting, I like to call it, where you're focusing on your stride. You're not really putting a lot of power output into your stride, but you are going that bit faster. So maybe like 1.5 intense sessions a week, and then your long run is that additional bit of intensity in the sense that it is more taxing on your body. So it is going to be hard, a long run. It is going to drain you, and you should be trying to plan your day based on, if you can, based on what you're going to be doing, like plan your week and plan your long run on a day that you're not going to be doing heaps after. But do keep moving, sleep well, focus on fueling, and I think you'll be all right. Thanks, Kieran. That's a interesting question. We could do have I done a whole episode on just the long run? I think that's a really good topic. Okay. Robbie.
Hi Tommy, this is Robbie from Newcastle. My point for you to discuss today is kind of around how overcomplicated and over-analysed running can be, especially on kind of social media and online. There's so many different nutrition methods and training methods that everyone posts, and especially for the many people who are just doing running for the various different benefits that it has, and they're not elite athletes. Do you think it's just gone way too far? And like, I noticed a lot of your questions, you tend to kind of caveat them with like, you need to figure this out yourself, or you need to find out what works for you, you need to try it and approach it your way, and there is no one fits all approach. And do you think it's just gone too far and it's just a bit too overwhelming, especially for beginner runners? So yeah, I'd be pretty keen to hear your thoughts on that. Love the podcast, love your Instagram content. The podcast keeps me great company on dog walks and runs, so keep up the great work, mate. Thank you.
Amazing. Another great question. I should have taken a sip whilst you were asking the question. One sec. A good question. I do often find that there is a lot of noise out there. And a lot of my content is the attempt is to try and fight that noise, but the reality is I'm just potentially creating more noise. But I do want to try and cut through that kind of idea that it has to be, or at least the feeling that one might get that it is complicated. There's a lot to it. Someone said to me not too long ago, no, sorry, indirectly, my girlfriend was speaking to someone at a run club about me, and my girlfriend was like, yeah, he sort of makes like social media content and a podcast, and she was like, what is it about? And Lou was like, it's about running. And she was like, oh, how can you talk about running? Like, can you really talk about running all that much? Because in her mind it was simple. Like, what? There's not heaps to talk about, is there? And it's true. It is true. You could say that there's not heaps to talk about. It's a pretty simple activity, and I agree. You know, I of course at this point have managed to talk about it almost exclusively for 4 years, and I think there's a lot to it. It's the great metaphor for life. But in terms of training, it is very simple. Running is very simple. And it is a case of going out there, putting in nice, easy mileage, and dosing in their speed work. And that's really the way to do it. And you should also resistance train. It is quite simple. And we can focus on too much of the stuff that really doesn't matter, whether it's the data or whether it's even your pace. And as a new runner, if you're asking Robbie about new runners, if you're a new runner, you are going to be overwhelmed by the information coming your way. If you're on social media, if you're using the internet, there's a lot out there. The running industry is growing and it is big, and there's a lot of interest. A lot of people run in some capacity. And I think the more into it you get, I do think the more interesting it gets, and the more interested in all these things you will get. And there is something to be said for, I think, yes, it can be confusing, but I also think that people are quite discerning, and I do think that ultimately most people have a pretty good idea of how to approach this stuff. I think it's easy to get sort of lost in the idea that there's loads of misinformation out there and it's really bad. And of course that's true. But for me, I've learned a lot of what I know because of the internet. And I think that a lot of people, and social media, I think that a lot of people can. And I think that's a good thing. And I think for the most part, there is very good information out there. And I think people are able to discern what is evidence-based, what is reasonable, what makes sense. And, of course there will always be a lot of misinformation and a lot of just the sheer fact that there's a lot of information that can be negative for some people. But I think that it's more a good thing than a bad thing. As I discussed on my previous episode about running in the new tech age and how it's different, I think it's mostly a positive. I feel like I may have deviated off your question a little bit, but Robbie, you had me riffing on something that I think is an interesting one there. Well, I hope you found it interesting anyway. Yeah, does that answer your question? I guess you can't say whether it does or not, but I hope that was somewhat a good answer. Yeah, so I was just looking at the transcript of your question. Yeah, I think that I wouldn't say that it's gone too far. I would say that we all need to just be as good as we can be at discerning what is beneficial information and truthful information and what is not. I believe in you. I believe we can do that. Okay, Daniela. Danielle has asked a few questions, and always appreciate it.
Hey, Tommy. Danielle coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Want to say congratulations on the coaching hub and thank you for your podcasts. I've been enjoying them. My question is how would you advise anyone on dealing with pressure, whether it comes from family, friends, or a coach? Being expected to, perform at a specific level. I mean, it could be like, ooh, daunting. Like, I will do my best, but some of us can crack under pressure. I don't know. Any advice you have would be awesome to hear. Thanks so much.
Pressure. We've got to do an episode on pressure. Wow. Yeah, I was listening to the Rich Roll podcast today when I was running up a fake hill on a treadmill, and he was interviewing a sprint coach. Let me get the episode. I want to reference who he is. Stuart McMillan. And Stuart was talking about this idea that in the first 30 meters of a sprint, they talk about applying pressure. And that sort of mantra or cue doesn't necessarily work for everyone. It can be like power or force. But the idea of pressure, applying pressure in that early stage of a sprint, and then after that sort of relaxing and coasting through, I think that spoke to me a bit. The idea, I could imagine that, if I'm sprinting, the first 30 meters, applying pressure. And the reason I bring that up is because pressure is an interesting one. You can see pressure as a bad thing, or you can see it as a good thing. There were certain types of pressure that I didn't do well under as a kid. I was never very good at exams, didn't like that environment. But in the moment pressure on the sports field, I rose to, personally. I enjoyed the pressure of that moment. And in a professional sense, I've always done my best I've always performed my best at things where there has been a bit of pressure. I've always also been efficient and on time and productive when there's been some pressure. But pressure does exist in larger doses, potentially, or there's certain types of pressure that are not as productive, that are not as necessary. And I would say in those moments where the pressure is getting too much, that pressure only exists in your understanding of your sort of experience that you're going through. The understanding you have of the experience you're going through is based on some sort of prediction of the future, or what if of the future, and of some reminiscing on the past, or thinking about the past, or telling yourself a story about the past. That is how you're experiencing the pressure that you're going through. It may be a pressure from your boss at work. Really what you're thinking is, how are they seeing me? How are they judging me? What if they don't like my work? What if I get fired? All of these things. That is a negative narrative. And the pressure that you're experiencing can be seen either through the lens of that negative narrative, or it can be seen positively. I know that I have to do this thing now in order to deliver. The pressure is on. I'll rise to that. Now, some pressure obviously is difficult. It's difficult to reframe that pressure, because if it is from a mean boss, if it is from unsupportive friends or family, if it is unhealthy pressure, then it's up to you to decide, how to engage with that or whether to. But the point I'm trying to make is that pressure doesn't have to be a bad thing. It certainly can be a good thing if seen the right way. And I'll give you an example. Recently, and thanks Daniela for congratulating me on the Coaching Hub, really appreciate that. Recently, I have been working hard on the Coaching Hub, and yesterday, I'm speaking to you from the 3rd of June, and yesterday on the 2nd, on Monday, we launched the new version of the Coaching Hub, and I'm really chuffed with how it's gone. And a lot of work went into that, and I had a date that I had to be finished by, be done. I had to have done loads of videos, loads of content, writing up all of the descriptions and text that accompany all the videos and the resources, and programming all of the different levels. There's a lot of work that suddenly came my way, and the pressure of having that 2nd of June release date, yes, was uncomfortable. Yes, it made my head spin a little bit when I was in the shower, like, oh, I've got to do this. I'm stressed. Right now, I'm under a lot of pressure. This very podcast is part of that pressure. Although I love doing it, I have to do the thing. And that's good. It allows me to be productive. All I have at my disposal, the only thing I can control is how I see that pressure, how I approach it, the narrative that I'm telling myself. My conscious experience is, the quality of my conscious experience is predicated on the narratives, on the stories I'm telling myself. So, whatever pressure you're experiencing right now, Daniela, just know that there is usually a way to reframe how you see and feel and experience that pressure. And very practically, step away from the things that aren't serving you. If you are getting a lot of pressure from certain individuals, it might be up to you to control how much of that individual you have in your life. Just for a bit, you have control over those things as well. So run the runnable, do what you can, focus on what you can do, see what you can control in your head, see what narratives you can start telling yourself about the pressure that you have, that you're under. Okay. Thanks, Daniela.
Hi Tommy, Indy from sunny Scotland at the moment. Just wanted to say love the content. I've been listening to your podcast since I've pretty much started my running journey last year when you released your podcast. I just had a question about shoes. So I currently have these like trail/road shoes, and I'm looking to buy some new ones, and I like the brand Innovate because you talk about them lots and you have good things to say about them, and I like that they're UK based as well. And I'm wondering if you had any shoe recommendations for like road shoes but with the grip of a trail shoe, because whilst around where I live I am running a lot on roads or tracks. The tracks are very stony and I need a good grip on my shoe for it, but it's very hard ground, like a road. So wondering if you had any help. Thank you so much.
Yes, I can help. I know exactly the shoe you want. Yeah, and I also, I love talking about this. A lot of people are like, ask me why I always wear trail shoes when I'm running in London. And the reality is, I'm always doing mixed terrain, and my trail shoes can deal with the tarmac because they can deal with rocks on the top of a mountain, and they can deal with all sorts of mixed terrain and gravel and mud. So I tend to wear trail shoes all the time, to be honest. And one might say that your lugs will get ruined on the tarmac. I haven't found that is actually too much of an issue for me. I do run on mixed terrain, so I'm changing it up. But also on the roads, generally, if you've got a good pair of trail shoes, they're pretty resilient, the lugs underneath. And if they are, effective lugs, then they will be fairly solid. And so you won't ruin your tread in any more than you would ruin, road tread. Road tread is thinner anyway, so you're going to run that down quicker. Whereas the trail shoes that I run in, they seem to just last longer. And I do sometimes run in road shoes if I know I'm just going to be plodding on the tarmac maybe, or if I'm doing some speed stuff. But a lot of the time I'm in trail shoes, and that's because I have the same, even in London, Indy, I have the same challenge, but self-inflicted challenge, because I'm seeking out trails, I'm seeking out interesting paths, and so I want shoes that are going to be able to take me on my full little mini adventure every day. And the shoes that I love for that are the trail flies. Now, there are 3 kinds of trail flies. There's the OG trail flies, which are, I may have this wrong, and I should really know this, but I think it's a 4mm drop, and it's fairly minimal, and it's got a nice wide toe box. It's probably got about 3/4 of an inch of foam underfoot, and it's solid. And everyone loves the trail flies. So they released the trail fly Max and the trail fly Zero. The Max is, I think, a 4 to 6mm drop. Don't know if I got my facts right there. Maybe 4. And is a max cushioning. Not as max as a brand like Hoka, for example, but there is more cushioning on that one. I'm running a lot in the Innovate Trailfly Maxes right now. They are just such good shoes. I love them. They're just, exactly the type of shoe that I like. I feel very nimble in them. I feel very light on my feet, and I feel protected, and I love those shoes. And then the Zeros, which are a 0 drop, and they're also great shoes. I actually should really be wearing them more, just to work on the calves a little bit, just that little bit more with the fact that they're 0 drop, but they're also out. So maybe as someone who's new to Innovate shoes, I would say get the Maxes. They also have Trail Talon Maxes now, which have bigger lugs, if you want real grip on the mud. But we're coming into summer, so maybe just the trail flies. And you're looking for something that is best for mixed terrain, and that is the trail flies. Thanks for the question. Max is next. We have 2 messages here from Max. I have a message here from Max 2 months ago and one 16 days ago. Sorry, Max, that I missed the first one. We're going to listen to both of them, and I will do my best to answer both.
Hi Tommy, Max here. I've got to say I'm a massive fan of your podcast and all of your content. I'm training for a marathon, my first ever marathon myself at the minute, and your podcasts are definitely getting me through some of those long runs. So a big thank you for that. My question is actually about nutrition for after my marathon. I've been thinking about it for a while really. My calories are, the highest they've actually ever been because of all of the output I'm doing, and I know that once I finish my marathon, for the first week or maybe even 2 weeks, I won't necessarily be moving as much, but I know my body will be, in a state of recovery. So I was just wondering what you think is best to do, nutrition in calories wise, whether I need to, drop them to avoid, weight gain, or just keep them to where they are at the minute. But yeah, thanks a lot for your content, and really appreciate it, mate.
Amazing. Yeah, this is a one that I think it reminds me of. I did a little video on socials this week or last week about losing weight when by running, so running to lose weight, and how there are some challenges with it, and there are some things that you will have to just be a little bit more vigilant of. But if you're not thinking about weight gain or weight loss, then if you're really just like in terms of if you're really just thinking about performance, then you don't want to decrease your calories. In my opinion, you want to be fueling your body as it recovers, and you'll find that you'll be burning more calories as well after. But you will want to keep fueling. You want to make sure you fuel a lot, actually. I quite often am in a calorie surplus intentionally after my races. I'll tell you what, I had some, my first few ultras, I lost some weight in the process. And I'd look gaunt after my ultras. So I now fuel up a lot in the 2 weeks approaching my ultra, and and that includes the taper. And then I also fuel quite a lot after as well. As someone who's doing quite a lot of cardio, I'm burning quite a lot of calories. So, and that might be the same for you, Max. So generally, a high amount of calories is good. The only time I would say you want to lower your calories is if you are putting on weight, if you're unhappy with your body composition and you want to lose weight, then it would be worth trying to make sure you're in a calorie deficit. I think that answers your question. We're going to move on to your next question, Max.
Hi Tommy, Max here. I'm currently training for my first ever marathon. I've got it in 14 days. So yeah, buzzing for that, to be honest. But I've got a question just about your coaching, really. So as I said, I've got my marathon in 2 weeks, and post marathon, I'm looking to obviously take my running a bit more seriously, but also get into start getting back in the gym, because for me, one of my priorities is to look good as well as, feel good. I want to look good. I'm just wondering if part of your coaching plan with the running and the gym work, you also do, muscle gain and fat loss programs and things, just so someone like me, as I'm a massive fan of all your content, can potentially work with you to improve my running and also my body composition as well. But thank you, Tommy. Really appreciate you listening.
Nice one, man. Yeah, we all want to look good. We all want to look good. I want to look good. I go to the gym to look good. And there's no harm in that. But I will always try to promote and will always only coach individuals who are focused on performance over aesthetics, over body composition and looking good. It's really important that we have that the right way, and that we make sure to fuel our body appropriately and be comfortable with our body, be positive about our body. But feeling good and looking good are good friends. And I think I feel really good when I've been to the gym, I've got a pump on. If I feel like I look good, then I feel even better. And for a lot of people who have gone through the journey of losing weight and improving their body composition, it gets easier when you look good, when you can look in the mirror and see results. So that's a big part of training. It's a big reason why we do this stuff. I'm not kidding myself in thinking that, I'm not thinking that everyone's just into health and fitness because we care about our health long term and that's the only reason. That's not the only reason. The reason a lot of people are into health and fitness is because they want to look good and they want to perform well because it looks good. But we should find good reasons, strong reasons to work on our physique that aren't just based on, only looking good. We want to be strong. We want to be capable. We want it to contribute and supplement our running. But I think it's an important thing, and it's a cool thing when you look good, when you feel good, when you look like, when you sort of feel like you look good, when you're looking in the mirror and you're proud of yourself. That's a good feeling that I think is worth chasing in a healthy way. But I could rant on this for a long time. I hate bodybuilding. the sport of bodybuilding. I hate it. I think that it is unhealthy. Not that ultra running is completely healthy, but I do think that there are more issues in bodybuilding when it comes to drug use and self-esteem and mental health. And I think I don't like the sport. I don't like it. And I am happy to say that. I just think it's stupid. And if you've done it, if you've been into it, that's great. But from an outsider's perspective, if you like it as well, if you're triggered by me speaking aggressively against bodybuilding as a sport and getting on stage, I think the whole process of it is very extreme in the worst ways, and a lot of the stuff they're doing to achieve those physiques is extremely unhealthy in many ways, both physically and mentally. And so, that is the extreme side of improving your body composition. It is bodybuilding. It is getting on stage and getting the so-called perfect physique and being judged on that. I mean, we could have a whole episode on the industry of bodybuilding, the amount of incidents that take place because of bodybuilding, the amount of drug abuse and steroid use and all sorts. And I just don't think it's a good thing. I feel like I've said that before and people have been triggered. So if you've been triggered, I'm sorry. But I do think that bodybuilding should be avoided. But looking good in the gym and self-improvement and being able to see results, that's all good stuff. To specifically answer your question of whether my coaching will help with that will become a byproduct of my coaching. If you increase your volume, you do hard sessions running, and you weight train and you strength train, resistance train to assist your running, but also full body each time, then we'll be working on bench, we'll be working on squat, we'll be working on deadlift, pulls, pushes, the lot. And so you will likely see changes in your body composition. In terms of weight loss, I won't be doing any weight loss specific coaching, but there is a tracking capability for your food. You can do a food diary in the app, so you can track your nutrition, and so we can work on that together. Cool. All right, thanks, Max, for both your questions, man. Okay, we have one final question. This is the final question in my bucket. Now, I have to be honest, I may not have answered your question previously, but I have lost track in the pile of questions. I've lost track of who has been answered and who hasn't. If you have a question for listener questions for this podcast, if you like this podcast and you want to contribute, then do ask a question and we will answer it definitely on the next listener questions. Okay, the last question is from Deck.
Hi, Tommy. I'm just popping a quick question based on post-race blues, or such as I'd call it, or jokingly post-race depression. It's obviously not that deep, but basically once I hit a milestone, once I've been training hard for a race and I do well in that race, I perform, or maybe if not, after that's finished, I tend to get quite down and unmotivated and struggle to get back into my running again. Just a quick question on how yourself personally deals with a period after you've hit an accomplishment and how you get motivation to do another race. Thanks.
So interesting that you've asked this question, because soon we will have a guest on who will be able to answer this question better than anyone. But the post-race blues are real. They're a real thing. And I've had them before. I think what's really important is to focus less on the accomplishments and to focus more on making sure you continue to enjoy your running. And that might mean that you take a week off. It might mean that you completely step away from running and just play badminton for a bit. But But you have to focus on enjoying running. That should be P1. And post-race blues, I would say maybe just book another race, bro. Book another race quick. Yeah, get on the internet. Pour yourself a drink, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and get on the internet and book yourself another challenge, bro. It's as simple as that. I think that this is the only way we can survive, actually, is by constantly booking another race. No, but in all seriousness, if you are actually like really struggling with motivation and everything, just I think take a break, dude. I think take a break. I like my breaks. I'm very seasonal as a runner. Recently I haven't been so seasonal, but like quite often I'll have like a bunch of races in the same period of time, and then I don't have anything booked for months, and people ask me, what are you training for? I don't know, man. Nothing. I'm just running. And is that such a crime? But great question, and I'm very excited because I have just reached out to someone who could be coming on the podcast, and he's a serious athlete and someone who we will all learn a huge amount from in regards to post-accomplishment blues. That's it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for being here for any of the first 40 episodes of That's Runnable. If you haven't listened to some of the earlier ones, feel free to. I feel like I'm maybe better at it now, but there's 40 for you to choose from if you're into it. And if you've made it this far, if you've made it to the end of this episode and you liked it at all, then please go and rate it if you feel called to rate the podcast. Feel free to, and I really appreciate it. I honestly do. It's a wild thing doing a podcast, and I just love connecting with you on these listener questions. If you have any more listener questions, please send them in. I love doing this segment, and we've sort of run out of questions, or at least I've just got very disorganized with it. So run the runnable, keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you next time.